To set pace for this conversation, there's already a growing concern among farmers regarding the government's preparedness to handle potential disasters in the event of El Nino, as reported in some regions of the country. This raises questions about the government's readiness. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua announced on Monday that he will convene the National Emergency Response Committee to discuss the country's readiness for the expected El Nino rains next week, even as certain parts of the country have already begun experiencing rainfall. Mwege William paints us this picture before we begin the conversation.
Preparedness in Baringo County, farmers here are already fully engaged in ensuring that their farm yields are well sun-dried for proper storage, but there is a fear crippling in them, with the rains already being recorded in some parts of Baringo South. The harvested maize not well dried and the rains are almost here, and there is a high chance that there is a risk of the harvest rotting.
Asa kwa kuanja mahali tunanikia mahindi, ikinyesha mahindi naloa maji.
Can you imagine katika this century, wakulima wanakausha kwa chini?
This prompts the tens of farmers gathered in this field to sun-dry their maize harvest, to call out both levels of government over the state of preparedness in managing any eventualities in case of any incidences as the El Nino rains commence to pound hard in some parts of the country.
Kuna post-harvest losses mingi, na unajua mkulima akishafika hapa hastahili kupoteza.
Sasa ile mahindi imekauka, tungepata kashedi ile tunapepa tunatupanga hapo kitambo isheliwe ingekuwa afadhali.
In response to the fervent concerns voiced by concerned citizens, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua declared on Monday his intention to convene a meeting next week. The purpose being to formulate comprehensive strategies aimed at alleviating potential damages that may result from the impending heavy rainfall season. The announcement coming weeks after the Meteorological Department's pronouncement regarding the anticipated El Nino rains.
Next week, I'll be convening the National Emergency Response Committee that I chair with all government agencies, development partners, the Red Cross, international organizations, and all other stakeholders to discuss our preparedness for the expected El Nino rains.
For the better part of the month of September, a number of counties have been reported to commence laying out plans to mitigate possible effects of El Nino rains.
We invite you to work with us as we set up and implement measures to prevent possible tragedies.
Some of the regions expected to be significantly affected by El Nino rains include Siaya, Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, Kisii, Nyamira, Baringo, Uasin Gishu, West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, Kericho, Kakamega, Busia, Trans Nzoia, West Pokot, Vihiga, Laikipia West, Nakuru, and Narok. Mwege William, TV 47.
Actually, before we start, clarify on the recent El Nino phenomena that we have experienced. When was the last time we had such an event?
Yeah, maybe before I get into that, allow me to introduce Kenya Red Cross.
Okay.
At times, people have different opinions about who Kenya Red Cross is. Kenya Red Cross is established through an act of parliament, similar as you would have any other act in parliament that would establish a body. And in that act, which is called the Kenya Red Cross Act, we are mandated to be auxiliary to government. So that means that we support the endeavors of the government to ensure that we alleviate human suffering and also improve the quality of life of Kenyans across different sectors, which disaster management is one of them. As regards El Nino, we've had several cyclical periods when Kenya reported El Nino. We had the famous one that is known by many Kenyans in 1998, which was, I think, the heaviest. We've had other similar ones consequent to that, but the most notable one is the 1998 El Nino period. Once again, we find ourselves in the same context. Fortunately, during this period, science has improved. We are able to predict better, prepare better, engage the communities better. Thank you.
And I was actually now heading there.
Yes.
I mean, since that one, the most notable one, 98, and there was another in 2015, 2016?
Yes.
Since then, science has definitely evolved. Tell us, because at that time, the government would say, we have, prepared. Right now, and at that time, the negative effects outweighed the positive effects. Right now, the government will say the positive effects are going to be outweighing the negative effects. How's that?
Yeah, I think when you look at the collaboration between science, technology, science being the science of meteorology, climate, as well as science in terms of disaster management, we've seen a lot of improvement. We are able to predict even the normal rain patterns within the country. We've seen over time that when the meteorological department indicates that the weather forecast for this period is like this, the precision is higher than before. And similarly, that same science is able to advise us on such occurrences as we are anticipating in the coming week or two. The government has been able to lead all agencies, including Kenya Red Cross, and as I'd mentioned earlier, we are auxiliary to government in developing a contingency plan, well-thought plan for all sectors, has profiled which counties, based on the advice of the meteorological department as well as the climate scientists, which counties are at highest risk of above average normal rainfall, classifying the country into three main zones.
Okay.
The highest risk counties currently profiled by the climate scientists are 25, mainly within the northeastern side, the coastal region, the eastern as well as the upper eastern zones, going up all the way to Marsabit. We expect also that some counties within the lake region are going to experience flooding, maybe most likely due to flowback of water from the lake areas. And then the central Kenya, as well as some parts of the Rift Valley, are expected to have some landslides. So that is the picture in terms of prediction. What are the likely outcomes of these hazards? In addition to that, and based on the data that we've had, historical data on epidemics, we have profiled which counties are likely to have which epidemics, disease outbreaks, and measures jointly with the county government have been put in the plan to prevent the same.
Right. And definitely even on the screens showing you how, which particular countries are going to really receive. But then even as we continue, Caleb, now you definitely have background on now the health management of this. I mean, the public health in emergencies. Speak to us now, because before the break, we're taking a look at the championing, and if we're championing for the cleaning up of roads and waste in Nairobi. We have seen Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja saying that a number of recruits have been hired so that they can clean up Nairobi. Different counties are doing that, having their own plan to clean up the specific counties and having plans to mitigate negative effects for El Nino. But then, does it just end in cleaning up? Now, where does the health bit step in? So that you probably clean up and then maybe have a checkup of people who are around there, get to know, well, if this area might be prone to cholera and other outbreaks?
The El Nino phenomenon, or the increased rainfall that is anticipated, is going to have different effects based on the setup and environments of the different areas. Within the urban setups, we are expecting, especially for the towns that have congestion or slums, or indeed some of the water, road, sanitation infrastructure could have been clogged. That is a risk that is there. And we've seen within the various counties, Mombasa also included, they've put in a lot of measures to ensure that all these drains are opened up, to ensure that when we get to that situation, then the flow of water is not restricted. Now, going back to health, within the last 1 year, from October last year, Kenya has been reporting cholera in different counties. We've had other disease outbreaks, but notably cholera during this period. And we've worked closely with the county and national governments to, curb the outbreak. But the risk portends. With increased rainfall and potential for bursting of sewers, such scenarios are likely to recur. In the contingency plan, as led by the sector in health, plans have been put in place to ensure that we have communities engaged, volunteers, both at the ministry, those are the community health promoters, as well as the Kenya Red Cross volunteers, are adequately trained and equipped to engage communities to ensure that they are able to drink safe water and dispose of their fecal matter safely. So joint working between the county governments and the Red Cross branches within those particular counties are in full gear, just to ensure that we are adequately prepared and we prevent diseases.
Well, it's okay. It's one thing
Yes.
to sensitize these people.
Yes.
And it was a conversation we were having even
Yes.
before we began.
Yeah.
Hanifa in Pipeline tells this the people living around there. So this is the bin. You can throw your waste here. You can help us clean up this road, all the waste that is here. Weeks later, or just a week later, you'll find the same waste there. Okay, in your experience now, where is there goodwill for all of this? Because we'll see all this cleaning and all this disaster management, but then it boils down to again the goodwill of the people.
Yeah, I think there are several things here that probably are beyond my scope and the scope of Red Cross to engage. But you can see that the county government has already initiated plans to ensure that waste management is put at the fore or ensured that is working before the El Nino rains. Probably in next engagements, it will be prudent to also engage the waste management colleagues from the county government on the same. But so far, so good. I think what we are seeing in terms of investment from the Environment Department and those who handle waste management are steps in the right direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, as Kenya Red Cross, I believe you are engaged in matters evacuation.
Yes, yes.
So now, how does that happen? Because I'm taking a look at, for example, in Budalangi, or where my director comes from, Shamahoho,
Yes.
around there. Such a place, if you're really going to tell someone that you're evacuating them, they'd probably see that there's some empty space around there, because maybe there's not too many buildings around there. So they'll find a space to evacuate. But if you're telling me, living somewhere in Kitisuru around there, to evacuate the whole urban planning that is around there might not be just too much, any space left to evacuate. How does this, how is Kenya Red Cross factoring all this?
Yeah, you bring out the right picture about the country and the context with which we are working in terms of disaster risk reduction. The setup within the rural areas is different from the urban, and even within the urban there are different setups. You would have the urban slum areas or areas that are congested in terms of housing, and then you have the more a little bit affluent and well-structured zones. So the context for the disasters within or flooding within those areas vary. But key number one is to ensure that the communities are engaged. This is a process that requires the individual households to be aware of what their options are and weigh what their solutions would be. In the context of rural areas, it is easier because you would find these are setups of families, relatives, clans, people with close relation. Engaging them, it becomes a little bit easier, and making decisions as to what steps we will make in the advent of the adverse effects of the increased rainfall. But within the urban setup, it is a little bit different because you have people who are renting within those informal or formal settlements, which then becomes difficult. Red Cross has urban risk reduction program or projects within these areas to establish community-based risk reduction teams who engage these households on a regular basis. And right now, we are engaging them as regards the possibility of flooding and what they need then to do to ensure that they support themselves to minimize the impact or the risk of flooding. Yes.
So basically now it will now boil down to the devolved unit,
yes,
the specific county, how it manages and basically how it plays around the whole disaster management for it. So again now, your role as the Red Cross, partnering with different counties, tell us about that.
As I had indicated earlier, we are auxiliary to government, both national and also the county. It is within the law that provides for that auxiliary role. Now, within the national level, our role is mainly to support on policy-related aspects, technical guidelines on the same, and supporting the overall response. But within the counties, this is where the boots touch the ground and where it actually hits the road. And within the county governments, it is context specific. If you have counties, for instance, in Wajir, their context is very different. If it rains and flooding occurs in Wajir, you have different scenario. Roads are cut off, some health facilities are cut off, and we work closely with them to ensure that we prepare adequately. We've had histories of certain disease outbreaks in some of those counties, and we know that if we have rainfall, we anticipate this. So we engage the communities to ensure that they prevent some of those diarrheal diseases and vector-borne diseases that are expected to come in with the advent of flooding.
Right. Let's stick around on the whole evacuation bit for a moment here.
Yes.
Because now I'm curious.
Yes.
For example, wherever I live in Nairobi, is Red Cross going to contact me, probably send me a message and warn me of maybe any effect that may happen on the immediate area that I live in? Again, also speak on matters flooding, because I'd say wherever I live in, there isn't much maybe rains, but then because of the topological how that place really looks like,
yes,
maybe it's on a valley, so it rains somewhere else, and the whole rain and water settled there. So how is Red Cross now talking to, let's say, for example, Nairobi, the residents around there? Because the population here is large.
Yes.
So how is Red Cross really tapping to every citizen?
Our engagement with the communities vary based on the individual target population or the individual households. There are various means that we reach out. As I talked about, we have the community teams within the various estates of Nairobi who would do community engagement, community-wide engagements or house-to-house visits. We are finalizing the issue of terror messages. This will be done based on the individual geographic zones across the country in the high-risk profiled areas. So the messages will be tailored specific to, they're already tailored, it's about to go out. To reach,
when should we expect that?
Within the next 1 week, should be having those messages in our phones. This will ensure that the message itself is specific to your context. If it is the urban Nairobi setup, if it is the lower eastern areas of Makueni, if it is the northeastern areas of northeastern or Marsabit, for instance, if it is Budalangi, the messages are specific to your context. Yeah. So we're working very close with some of our partners, including the various providers of network, to ensure that this happens and it reaches all Kenyans. Then other media outlets, of course, what we are doing right now ensures that we are engaging populations, but also radio talk shows, as well as social media platforms.
Actually, before you actually now go on, because Kenya is a place where you'd probably see a message coming from the government, and you'll actually now have more questions than whatever information you had at the moment. For example, you wake up and you see a message by the Kenya Meteorological Department. You're wondering, what is this all about? Now you have even more questions. Provide us with some context. I don't know from where you sit, if you can, some context of what Kenyans should be expecting from some of these messages, so that they can also know what they're looking at.
First, it is about the potential effects, or the hazard itself. What are the potential effects within your context, within your geographical area, what to do, who to contact for help. Such are the messages that will come through, so that you are not alone. You are within the context of the overall country's contingency planning.
Right.
Yes.
Now, next week, we did see Deputy President, I believe on Monday, saying that he's going to convene a meeting, the whole Emergency Response Committee, basically taking a look at the disaster management now for the El Nino. I believe Kenya Red Cross is going to be part of this meeting?
Sure.
Just painting a picture, what should we now expect in such a meeting? I mean, taking a look at according to the Met Department, saying that these rains are expected to begin as early as September, then peak in October. What should we now expect in such kind of a meeting? What deliberations should we be expecting from here?
As I had mentioned earlier, this has not just started. So next week's meeting is not the first of such. As I told you, the government, through the organ responsible for disaster management, already has a contingency plan in place. The various sectors, there are critical sectors within the space of disaster management, like the health sector, WASH, this is water, sanitation and hygiene sector, all have sector-specific plans, which we contribute. It's always a pleasure to work with other partners, not only government, but other partners, to have a very good document, solid, well thought plan for the country. So this is a conversation that will continue even within next week. Within the context of discussions moving forward, it is more of to see what has already moved to the ground. We are talking about prepositioning some of these supplies.
Right.
We are talking about prepositioning some of these skills that are necessary for supporting the communities. Supplies here could be any sector: health, infrastructure-related supplies, WASH, related commodities, nutrition. So all this space has been thought through, and now maybe as we move forward, just to take check on how far we are progressing on the plan.
Right.
Because we are not going to start next week. It is definitely a continuation of the plans. Yes.
And speaking of plans, I want us to listen to some sound bites by Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja, and also Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad, and also CS of lands, Zakari Njeru, and some Nairobi residents concerning the same El Nino. Let's listen into this sound bites before we continue.
On the finance bill, part of it is the fines. If the place in front of where you're working is dirty, you have to take care of the place where you're working. Haizi kuwa unauza miwa, unaichonga tu hapo, inamwagika na unacheka. Unauliza mbona Sakaja hajasafisha hapo.
We'll be collaborating with governments to map encroachment on drains and sewers, as well as identify vulnerable buildings in riparian land and wetlands.
Hapa kuna mpango ambaye tumepanga. Vile tuko hapa tunakaa kwa tent, na hizi matent tunaona tuko kwa hatarini. Kwa hiyo mvua ikinyesha tutakuwa kwa shida, maana sasa tutakuwa ndani ya maji. Maana sasa hakuna nini mitaro ya kuteremsha hiyo maji.
Watu kadhaa wamekufia hapa, kipindupindu tena kuna watoto walikufa hapa. Sasa hii nayo El Nino ikikuja itupate, si watu tena watakufa.
Hivi tunavyoongea kazi zinaendelea na kuna multi agency team ambao kwamba tunaiweka kwanza sisi wenyewe kama county tuwe na sauti moja na mwelekeo, kisha baada pale tunachukua na wengine partners wetu wakiwemo ni Red Cross. So we are prepared. Needless to say, we will be prepared as well in the event that we will need to be in a position to vacate people, those who are in the low-lying areas as well, and especially areas that have not been, that are not formal.
Right, there you have it, some sound bites there. And Caleb, there are drawing parallels of the sound bites. As much as the government side, national, and also the county, the CS Lands representing the national government, and both governors, Nairobi and Mombasa, representing county governments, are saying that they're prepared. We were listening to Mukuru Kwa Njenga residents saying that whatever they live in, they haven't really seen the preparedness of the government. Well, both tiers speak on that.
You know, when we are talking about all communities reached, not all of them will be reached at the same time. And there could be contexts with which certain communities are still not reached. But the purpose is what is key, is to ensure that all communities are adequately prepared and that the effects of El Nino, flooding in this case, will not harm them in this particular instance. So for the case in Mukuru, we're working very closely with the county government to ensure that those particular such settlements and displaced populations, or those who have been affected by other hazards that exposes them to the forthcoming El Nino, are safeguarded, or options discussed with them for them to take up to ensure that they are safe.
Right.
Yes.
And as we had started, we're taking a look at now in Baringo, the farmers there decrying that this rains are going to really affect their harvests. Now this, this is our basket of food, places like Baringo and the Rift. We are expecting some of these places to really harvest more food so that they can be a basket during this time to even have provision of food, as you were mentioning. So how's this now going to affect the fact that the specific and the same places that we are really expecting them to be a harvest and all that? Again, now they're complaining that hapa ni kama mvua itafekti hii mahindi yetu.
Working closely with the various ministry departments at the county level, especially those that deal with agriculture, so the Ministry of the Department of Agriculture within the various counties. And it's not only Baringo that we are looking at, working closely with even those in Uasin Gishu, because this is the harvesting period, just to ensure that farmers are engaged through the government structures on post-harvest management. But there is a good side towards this also in terms of livelihood and food security. Within the lower eastern side, we are seeing, or we are doing the engagement with the communities for them to plant, because this is the time that they are likely to have good harvests. If they do short-term crops, maize, things like cowpeas, and even pasture, for them to prepare well. So the county governments of the Lower Eastern have also profiled which particular seeds are good for the Ukambani zones, which particular seeds are good for pasture. And now the game is up to engage the farmers in the Lower Eastern areas to invest in that once the rains are here with us.
Right.
Sure.
Even as we continue, there's a question here for you, 22047, is the SMS number. Remember, Bethy, you can always call in live and talk to us and chime in on this particular conversation. But Caleb, David Mayaka says that people are quite sentimental to where they live. Is the government going to force people to leave their homes. I believe what you were talking about earlier matters evacuation, as the government is going to force people to leave their homes. How is that now going to play along? Unapata mtu ameishi hapo 50 years.
Yes.
Namwambia hapa boss, kuna mvua kubwa inakuja, naomba utoke hapa. And they definitely know this is the ancestral home.
Yes. As I'd said earlier, the issue of what to do before, during, and even after a particular hazard, in this case flooding, is not monodirectional. It's two-way engagement, and this is very important for us as practitioners in disaster management, that communities are engaged adequately. We are doing it through proper structures and ensuring that all households, as much as possible, are engaged on what are the options. For instance, if we talk about the Western Kenya side, we know that the counties are not profiled as high risk in the sense of increased rainfall beyond the levels that are expected in those areas. But we expect that the Lake Victoria receding and some of the rivers that come up from Nandi, Trans Nzoia, Bungoma sides are likely to cause flooding in those particular areas. So households are being engaged on, where, and this is a conversation that has not started. What are our options in the event that we have flooding in this area? Which is the safe site? If it is identifying a school or another institution that they can use in the meantime, that is identified jointly with the community. I know there is that sentimental attachment and also fear of losing some of those things that you hold dear in the flooding. But we work closely with them to ensure that you minimize those effects to the household.
Right.
Sure.
As we wrap up, Caleb, will the good outweigh the bad in this coming rainfall? Speak on that, and also how should we really prepare? Give us a toolkit of this. I mean, now Kenyans and even Nairobians are really going to be prepared to even harvest this water for all this.
I think over the years we've seen, as we mentioned earlier when we started, the issue of how many El Ninos that we had in the past, and are we ready now as a country? I think more than ever we feel that the country is getting better in terms of preparedness, even for early response, prompt response to the hazard. For communities, continuous engagement to ensure that all options are available to them, to ensure that the hazard, flooding in this instance, does not impact negatively on them. Exploring the positive side of it. As we mentioned, the issue of ensuring that farmers engage in planting short-term crops, reaping from the hazard. Which is a possibility. And this, I think, is where we can turn the conversation. We can only do that with adequate information, saturating the communities on what to do, when, and how.
Do you think the good will outweigh the bad?
It is our prayer. It is our prayer.
It is, okay. I love that. I feel like you're to continue, but short and precise.
Yes.
It is our prayer.
Yes.
Mungu bariki sisi on this.
Yes. As you plan, God allows you to plan, so plan well, because the brain that was given to all Kenyans is from Him. So as we pray, we know that we are doing the right thing in planning well, engaging communities well, and ensuring that communities are ready, county governments are ready, national government is ready, partners are ready, everyone is ready.
Everyone is ready. Tafuta gumboots, tafuta raincoat, because it's going to be muddy out here.
It will.
Right, Caleb Chermirmir, the manager, public health in emergencies, the Kenya Red Cross Society. Asante sana for your time and company as well, sharing